In addition to foreign crises happening in Europe, Washington has to deal with domestic crises, particularly a rebellion. You see, in Western Pennsylvania, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be angered by Hamilton's excise tax on spirits, particularly whiskey. Resistance was widespread. It wasn't just in Western Pennsylvania, but Washington chose Pennsylvania as basically an area where they would quell the rebellion. So why are they? Why are these? Why is there a rebellion against this excise tax? Well, basically, what you have to remember is this: during this time period, Americans drank a lot more than modern day Americans, and when it comes to taking your product to market, it's better to take it as a finished good, particularly a finished, almost virtually imperishable good, would be better. So all you really need to know is basically that country song about whiskey. Rain makes corn and corn makes whiskey. And so basically what will happen is that corn growers are going to basically distill their corn into whiskey and then sell it to market. So I mean, and the logic behind it is simple. First of all, when you distill something, when you apply labor to a raw material, you're going to increase its prices. Don't believe me? Try buying a bottle of Jack Daniels for $1 versus $1 for an ear of corn. So you raise your prices. On top of that, it's going to be much more perishable. Much more imperishable, excuse me. Corn doesn't last very long. In fact, you can calculate the distance an ear of corn can move to market before it's either the transportation is too expensive or it basically rots. Well, you don't have to worry about that necessarily with whiskey. Have you ever had a bad bottle of Jack Daniels? Probably not. So whiskey was a major form of income for a lot of these Western Pennsylvania farmers, because they would take their corn, distill it into whiskey, and bring it to market. They would get a higher value for their goods, and it would last longer. So then in steps the federal government and says, well, guess what? You're going to get charged 25% for the production and consumption of whiskey. You're going to be pretty upset, especially since you just fought a revolution that could be described as a tax revolt. So you are going to rebel. And so in July of 1794, 500 militiamen are going to basically surround the house of a tax collector named John Neville. They're going to burn the house to the ground, but Neville's going to defend himself. But nonetheless, the message is clear. And so Washington, in response, is going to have to send in the army. Within 2 weeks of the burning of Neville's house, the rebellion goes from 500 people to 6,000 people. And Washington's going to send in the army. He's going to send in about 13,000 troops under the command of Anthony Wayne to quell the rebellion. To give you an idea how many troops this is, Washington would have only dreamt about commanding this many troops in the field during the American Revolution. Now, the army managed to quell the rebellion, and they basically found the ringleaders. They convicted them of treason, but Washington ultimately offered pardon to anybody who wanted it. But if you contrast that with Shays' rebellion in Massachusetts, the differences could not be more different. In Shays' rebellion, the federal government was powerless to stop it. It took the state militia of Massachusetts to put down the rebellion. Here, in the Whiskey Rebellion, the federal government is the one that put down the rebellion.